Today, we're actually gonna make this thing drive. Pretty excited about it, but you know, first, we got a lot of loose ends that we have to tie up.
Close enough.
To make this roadworthy, the first turbo 733i.
Or is it?
Who knows? But it's my first, for sure. So let's go ahead and tie up those loose ends. So I tried to put the turbo on with the exhaust manifold in the car, and it's become blatantly obvious that I can't do it because the bolts just, there's no way to tighten them up and torque them properly. So I'm going to take the exhaust manifold back off the car. We're going to torque the turbo onto the exhaust manifold, then we're going to put it in the car that way. That's the goal.
You sure about that?
Yeah.
Going the wrong way. Lefty loosey, righty tighty.
Oh, it's super easy.
Yeah.
You just wanted to see if it was tightened down, right? To take it off. Yeah.
Well, I got to be honest. The last time I did this, I took the studs off.
Let me tell you about it, stud.
That's not good.
No, it's not what's supposed to happen. That's for sure.
I
know that
two bolts.
all the real YouTube car people would be using power tools for this.
I don't know if you can get a power tool in there.
You can't. At least not any of the ones that I have.
Right.
Now that's what I call a sticky situation.
Anyone want to sponsor the channel? You can send the tools out. Need some of those zero-turn ratchets.
3 days later.
Stay organized, kids. Now, how much room do you have?
It's tight.
It's tight, all right. There you go. All right. Out for the 15th time.
We got jokes and jokes and jokes.
This is some high test engineering going on here, guys.
You sure about that?
Yeah. Just the way it was going on there, it made it seem like the wrench wasn't flat. It was weird.
You sure about that?
Jesus. There it goes.
Close enough.
Are we still doing this? 60% of the time, it works every time.
That doesn't make sense.
There you go, you're on.
Can I get this one?
Should be able to, there's plenty of room in there.
That's what she said!
I mean, how are you supposed to put this on while it's on the car?
It's not going to be easy.
I might have to take the water line off. I mean, this is kind of almost the same kind of engineering as the freaking starter on this thing.
Oh my god. That was I don't know how you did that.
Drunk.
Yeah, I was going to say the only way you could have done it was drunk. You would have been in too much pain otherwise.
I was freaking hammered.
I remember. You were like, I got it. What? I got it. No, you didn't. I don't know how I did it. I just did it.
And if anybody knows why these turbo is all rusty, let me know.
Yeah.
How I can fix that. Probably spray it with WD-40.
Would you look at that?
Very nice.
I don't even want to know how you're going to get these bolts on with this on.
So this right here is the turbo's internal wastegate. This is going to go to a boost actuator, and pressure from the turbo will actuate a valve inside there to just allow the exhaust to pass through so the turbo doesn't spin up too fast. Now right now I have the boost pressure that feeds into this internal wastegate coming all the way across the engine from the intake side. And instead, I want to go ahead and install a bung here.
Are you threatening me? My bunghole will not wait. Bunghole.
So that the internal pressure of the turbo, or the actual boost coming from the turbo, happens right here. So whatever happens in the rest of the intake line, I don't have to worry about it over boosting the turbo. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this 1/8 NPT line in here. And to do that, we're going to drill a hole, and then we're going to tap that hole using this, and hopefully this goes as planned. Alright, so we are going to heat wrap these headers, with the main goal being to try to keep them from melting plug wires. So I've never done this before, shockingly.
Nope, not at all.
But we're going to do the best we can. It says the procedure is essentially to wet down the cloth. I'm using gloves because this is basically made out of Kevlar and fiberglass and that sort of stuff. Which means they're going to smoke horribly when we start the car. But it is what it is. And essentially you just wet these down, and then you wrap them and tie them up with these metal ties, and then hopefully it keeps more heat in here and less heat out here. We'll see how this goes. Now we're going to tighten these up and we'll move on to the next piece. Alright, so we've got our turbo blanket on. We have all the fittings in for our turbo, our water lines. The only one we're missing is this one right here, which will connect to a hose right here. And we went through our entire vacuum system. So this one goes to the intake right here, and so it'll report the amount of boost we have back to the ECU, and then this one goes to the boost gauge. And then we have another vacuum line that runs up over on this side right here, and that's teed off. This side goes to the fuel pressure regulator, and this side goes to our blow-off valve. So that's done. You notice that I don't have the turbo connected to anything on the intake. We're going to have a boost solenoid that's going to regulate our boost pressure with our internal regulator. So all of that stuff is all plumbed up right here, and as soon as the solenoid comes in, I'll probably mount it right here and plug it up and plug everything in, or I can mount it over here, somewhere in here. So there are only really two things left that need to be done. I need to go ahead and put these ridges on all of the pipes. I only did this one to make sure that it worked, and I know this one and this one are the only two that maintain those. Every other pipe was cut, so I'm gonna have to go through each pipe and put these little ribs back in there so these aren't popping off. So to do that, I'm gonna have to take off the bumper and go through all that stuff again. The other thing that has to be done is this is our oil pressure regulator right here, and right down there we have our oil temperature sensor, and we've got our oil temp sensor wire right here. We've got to wire the gauges up that are inside the car. So we've got to wire our oil pressure and oil temperature gauge in, and we still have to wire in all of the electrics for all the gauges. Now the only thing that's missing to finish the plumbing is a little elbow right here, And so as soon as that comes in, I'll be adding that hose right here. So an elbow is going to go from here to here, and then this hose will be one. Very simple.
Sure, Jan.
We added our little plug booties for our wires, and of course our exhaust wrap to try to keep the heat away from these wires as much as possible, so that maybe, just maybe, we don't burn up wires on a relatively constant basis. Since I have to make these wires myself, it would be really nice to have to not make them constantly, but we'll see what happens. I can already see that plug 1 may run into issues, so I'm gonna have to probably flip this up and have the wire running up here a little bit to get it up out of the way. But needless to say, we've got a lot of wiring to clean up and everything else, but our first goal is to get this running and tuned with the turbo, and then we can go ahead and clean up all of the wiring. So we're making lots of progress. We are basically just checking out that everything is good with the intercooler and finishing up the intercooler side, and then some quick wiring and one little fitting away from going ahead and starting this up. And I'm getting pretty excited. Got a little boost controller here, and I'm just going to mount it to this little plastic fairing thing that goes in the front. And so I'm just drilling out some holes here so we can mount it. And let's see if our hole is big enough, or if we're going to have to go a little bigger. A little bigger. That looks like it'll work. Now we do have a 2-port wastegate actuator, but it's a piece of crap and doesn't really work right. So we're going to use it as a 1-port wastegate actuator, and we're going to treat our boost solenoid as if it's going to control a 1-port wastegate actuator. What they're supposed to do is one side of the actuator pushes to open the wastegate, and the other side you can apply pressure to essentially increase the pressure that it takes to open the wastegate. The problem with the one that I have is that the one that's supposed to apply the pressure really only leaks.
No, that's not good.
So the top one works fine. So what this is going to do is it will bring the pressure from the turbo into one side, and it will apply that pressure to the top of the wastegate to open it up. And you can modify how much pressure is going to the wastegate with this port here. It will just escape gas through here in order to allow it to open at a lower pressure or a higher pressure or whatever you want. So that's what this does. So there we go. We're mounted pretty nicely in there. And we have this, which goes to our compressor, and that is going to connect right here. This one right here is the top of our wastegate, so that one is going to go right here. Now we just have to wire this into our ECU, which is pretty simple. One wire goes to 12 volt and the other wire goes to the ECU to actuate the boost solenoid. It's really pretty simple, and it doesn't matter which wire, as long as one goes to power and one goes to the boost solenoid. We're all set. These are the boost solenoid. One goes to the boost switch in the ECU, the other one goes to power. So I'm just...
Finish your thought.
No. No. Okay.
And there we go. All right, here we have our O2 sensor right here, or at least the bung for it. So we're gonna try to get our O2 sensor fitted in there. So we are at first start stage, which is nice. Our turbo is all buttoned up and wrapped, and our coils are all good. Wires are all wired up. I do have a little bit of a concern that our wires are just going to be constantly burning up because they're touching everything up here.
Say what now?
But I don't know what else I can do. The wires are wrapped and the turbo's all wrapped. So all of this stuff is all buttoned up. We've got our new boost solenoid right there, all wired up. Our oil pressure sensor and our oil temperature sensor down there, all wired up and installed. Hopefully none of this leaks. This has been pressure tested. The entire intake should be good to go and ready. Now I have an adjustable fuel pressure regulator, but I have no way to remove this. I do have a part coming that can remove it. So I have questions about how much actual fuel pressure I'm getting. So got a fuel pressure gauge hooked up just in case, so I can see for sure exactly what our fuel pressure is. I also had a little bit of a problem when I was turning on our fuel system to test everything, and all my injectors were leaking. So I had to kind of modify the fuel rail to sit lower. Obviously the injectors that I put in here might be a touch smaller. So all of this had to be adjusted a little bit to be lowered just a hair, and nothing seems to be leaking now. So I think we're ready to go. The oil's been changed. The coolant has been all topped off, and maybe it needs more. We can do that. We'll do that before we start it up. All right, all the waiting is over. We're gonna have to give it a shot and see what happens. Pretty nervous, but can't be nervous forever. Gotta just do what you gotta do.
No, no, no! Don't! Don't!
Man, is he dumb.
Don't!
No! God, please, no! No!
Yes, 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 this rocks!
3 weeks later.
Well, it's that time. We're gonna take our maiden voyage in our turbo 733 right now. Now I have started it, as you guys have seen, but I haven't driven it around. We're not gonna drive it far because the turbo inlet for the oil is actually leaking quite a bit, so it smokes like a chimney. But in order to provide some data to my tuner, I gotta drive it at least a little bit. So we're gonna go around the block, and then I'm gonna have to pull the exhaust headers off and tighten down the fittings on the oil inlet so that it's not leaking. And at that time, I need to replace the plugs anyways, so I kind of have to take the exhaust manifold off to change the plugs. That's how easy it is to work around in there with that turbo now. Not at all. But these are first world problems, turbo problems. It's the kind of stuff that happens when you do this sort of thing on a car that's not meant to have these sorts of things done. So let's start it up, take it around the block, see what happens. Now the warning lights are telling me that I don't have any windshield washer fluid, which makes sense because I've removed that bottle. But, you know, it is what it is. Getting that surge again, so I'm going to turn it off, turn it back on. Just wait till my AFR meter starts reading, then we're going to go. I can't say that I'm not nervous. I know it's going to smoke heavily out of the front where that oil is dripping right on the headers, but this is life in the fast lane. So let's see what happens. Ooh. Obviously I'm gonna be forced to raise the car up a little bit. We are dragging something maybe. Ooh. Dragging quite a bit. So we're obviously going to have to tie that exhaust up. And lift the front of the car a little bit. But it's driving perfectly. Oh, it makes some sweet turbo noises. I'm not even gonna lie. We are dragging our exhaust a little bit though. Oh. Ooh. Wow. You want to talk about some whistling? Woo! Now that's pretty cool. That was about half of the boost that we have available. Whoa. Well, I think that's all the fun we're gonna have for today. I gotta get that exhaust fixed.
What'd you do?
Pretending things didn't happen.
Please disperse! Nothing to see here, please!
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Lots and lots of oil, way too low. Other than that, it went pretty well.
You sure about that?
But let me show you what's going on here. As you can see, oil on the headers smokes a lot. So let's take a look what we got going on here. So it's coming from right there, and it's just dripping all over everything. So yeah, got to fix that fitting. Once we do, wow, everything is awesome. So let's do that. So as you can see right here, these hangers are what we're causing our rubbing problem. So we're gonna go ahead and turn those sideways.
And stick it straight up, you can't be asked!
Try to put the exhaust up a little higher than what it is. Raise the car up a little bit. So let's do that. All right, so we've raised the exhaust and repaired it a little bit. Raised the front of the car up about a 1/2 inch, also to hopefully avoid any exhaust dragging. We also went in here, tightened up some stuff, checked to see what's leaking. Hopefully we've got the leak resolved. I think oil is leaking and then burning off right here, which is causing all this smoke around in this area. So hopefully we got that squared away. We also have a new tune with a little bit more boost, and hopefully something that resolves our jumpy idle a little bit. Maybe, maybe not. I guess we'll find out, but it seems like we might be ready to go on our second journey to see what happens. Could be fun, could be horrifying. But I think we're in good shape here, so we're just gonna get in the car and let it rip and see what happens. Well, here goes nothing. Idling pretty nice. I usually like to let it warm up a little bit, but we'll take a nice light cruise around here and see what happens. It's running good so far. I'll let you know when we're warmed up. So we are about warmed up here. We'll make a pull or two and see what happens. Car's idling really well. And the fuel pressure is now appropriate. For some reason it just kind of decided to adjust itself, which is nice. Oh yeah, we're definitely getting more boost now. Very nice. Wow. It certainly does make this car fun to drive when you get that kind of response, and the noise it makes is just awesome. So we got up a little past our usual boost level, and that was pretty incredible. So we can't make much of a full pull on these back roads. We're gonna take it somewhere where we can make a full pull, and we're gonna see what happens here. I will say this, The idle is smooth as glass, pretty much perfect. So I'm enjoying that. We're gonna get on the highway here, see what happens. Probably around 10 pounds of boost, I would guess. I think we saw probably 10 pounds of boost. So we are pretty close to the target that we plan to reach. I don't know if any of this audio is actually going to be usable now that I think about it, because I got my windows open, because I'm listening to those amazing turbo sounds, and you guys are just kind of flapping in the breeze here. But I think we didn't hit our cutoff on the boost, so the temperature is super good. Boy, I'll tell you what, it's idling freaking butter smooth. Just awesome. So far I haven't noticed any smoke coming out from under the hood, so maybe we solved that little oil leak problem. So it looks like we got about maybe 8 or 12 pounds of boost, somewhere in there. We're definitely getting more boost. Well, that went really well. We still have a leak in the turbo oil supply system somehow that I cannot figure out, but otherwise it ran awesome. So maybe you watch those first drive segments and you're like, oh my god, this guy is so lame. And you know, compared to other YouTubers who go out on their first drive and just beat the crap out of the car and have a blast and all that stuff, that's just not me. I don't know that much about the turbo system. I never built a turbo system before or even tuned a turbo system. So I spent almost 2 years putting this thing together, and believe it or not, the first drive was not necessarily elation. It was more, holy crap, I hope this holds together. I probably spent more time looking at the gauges and worrying about whether the car was functioning properly than I should have, and that doesn't make for that exciting of a video. But believe me, I was definitely excited. This thing makes some absolutely sweet noises. So over the course of the last couple of weeks and months, I've been daily driving this thing. We've got all the leaks squared away. It runs pretty good. We're not maxed out on what we can do turbo wise, but I want to learn how to tune it myself so that I don't have to rely so much on somebody else. So I've kind of been taking some courses and doing that. to try to figure all that out. It's an absolute blast to drive, and it's a heck of a lot faster than it was when it didn't have the turbo. So I think we've got ourselves one heck of a little gem, and at some point we're definitely going to test it out to see how fast it really is. But I wanted to put this video out with our first drive, and we're going to do some garage updates, but we do have another project in the garage that I just want to give you a little sneak peek. You know, that's about as much of a sneak peek as you could really get. But we're going to have another car we're going to be working on, doing some awesome stuff. We've still got more to do on the old 733, so don't worry. And we are staying in the BMW family, so you don't have to worry about that either. And by the way, the engine in this car is the exact same engine as the one in the 733, so there'll still be some engine content on that. Man, that thing is so much fun, makes glorious sounds. I absolutely love it. Why would we spend all this time and money on an old beat up 733 that's literally worth nothing?
You tell me.
Well, it can only be for the love of cars, and if you're still watching this, I'm guessing it's because you love cars too. So go out there, find that beater sitting in the field that you've always wanted, fix it up, make it run, and have some fun. And I'll see you guys in the next video where we're going to have some really cool surprises.